Bryan, why don't I let you just do a quick introduction of yourself so the audience knows who we have here, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. Can we do that?
Bryan needs a bit of clarification, I would imagine. So my name is Bryan Rabenau, and I'm with Castrol. Spent the first 15 years of my career with Chevron, and spent about 10 years of that in manufacturing, both basically manufacturing and engineering. And then for the last 12 years, I've been in global leadership roles with either marketing or strategy. And now I'm running a portion of our investment portfolio. So a little bit about me, kind of a plant rat. I would say one of the things that makes us a little bit different in Castrol is that we actually do a lot more than lubrication. We actually have embedded personnel and engineers in facilities around the world. And that spans the entire, the entire value chain, from mining to production to aerospace. So a little bit about me.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, since time is short, let's see if we have anybody in the audience who's got a question for our panelists here. If you could wait for the mic, it's coming right over.
Yeah, I guess my question is more directed at Andre. One of the things I grapple with is the same problem that you described, that you had a lot of homegrown systems, and Joe Schmo retires and takes a lot of knowledge with him. Started using a lot of integration, which seems to make a lot of sense. But one of the things that I struggle with, and I'd be interested in your perspective on this, is when you move from a world of having homegrown systems to a world of buying off-the-shelf products, doesn't that come with its own set of inherent problems? Now you're married to a company that may not have the same vision you have. Now you're married to a company that basically can charge what they want for add-on services. And have you seen issues with that, and how do you deal with that problem?
Sure. So to answer that question, yes, there are risks associated with that. And anytime that you look at a package solution, you have to weigh the risk of, because you have the same problem, I would say, internally with your custom solutions as well. Because you have people that have a body of knowledge about that system, and when they walk out of the door, they take that knowledge with them. And so you're back re-engineering or reinventing the product. So I think those risks exist on both sides. The best way to do is just to make sure that the way that you go about it is you have an entry and an exit strategy is the best way to say that. Is that when you get into buying that package solution, you have a way to easily get into it and a way to easily get out of it. And also look at like products that are out there in the industry. So in my solution today, I use DeviceWise, and DeviceWise is the best product that was out there available to do what I can, I would say, utilize the most of my investment is the best way to say that. However, there are other options and solutions. So that's one way of looking at it. It's just not try to get siloed, but also understanding those risks that you're referring to exist both with purchasing a solution and also developing in-house a solution.
Let me just have a quick follow-up on that. Fred, is it really true that you can just charge whatever you want then?
Yeah. If I could, I wouldn't be here right now. Absolutely not. There's constantly pressures from the market. There's fair market value. There's value-based selling. There's price lists that are out there. It really depends on sort of how you take your products and services to market. I watched a panel earlier, and I thought it was interesting where someone had commented on the fact that they like to work with companies that they can collaborate with and they have a lot of mutual respect for. Where 1 + 1 = 3. And, we've enjoyed the relationship with the Honda team. And I think, sharing a common vision and having your vendor deviate from potentially your strategy is a problem if you don't communicate. So making sure that you pick a vendor that can listen, that understands that they're not in business unless your customer's happy, is key. So I think that's how we get around it. And no, we don't charge whatever we want.
No. Okay. Thanks for clearing that up. So, okay, looking for another question from the audience. Got another question here? Okay, here's one. Just hold on for a moment for the mic. And while he's coming, just remind you to please just introduce yourself and your company.
John Cook with General Motors. My question's maybe to Jason and Andre about, you talked about a change in the division of labor. Andre, your team joined engineering and IT, and Jason, I think you effectively said that as well. What were the benefits you saw where the controls engineer could access the configuration with the IT community, or vice versa, where the IT person certainly had access to getting into the messaging going down to the controls layer?
Well, the first answer to that is mutual respect, to be honest with you. So Jason talked about, the PLC guys were electricians, and that's what they knew, and they didn't know how to understand how to write complex logic. And the software guys, they understood this complexity thing. They could really write these really nice complex programs. So by bringing these guys together, I think that you have a nice marriage of mutual respect. So the complexity gets simplified. It's still complex things that you're doing, but in a much more simplified approach, meaning that it's very easy to identify what it's doing, it's very easy to follow up with it, and it's an easier product, I think, overall, what you're delivering to the customer. So I think the answer to that is really outside of mutual respect, is you get a very simplified architecture. In the past, we had two complicated worlds. And so coming together, that's what we've really seen, I think, as a staff. We've grown, and it's been easier, quite frankly, to teach, IT guys controls things for a certain perspective. But the IT guys aren't very good at the electrical items. So bringing both worlds together is the benefit outside of that.
Okay.
Yes, I just add to that the reason when we started off with this project and said, let's make this an IT project, is we wanted to leverage that. We don't want to have too many people in the controls group. We don't want to bloat up our group. So if we can leverage the database, the DBAs to do the SQL support, to do the optimization, to basically use the triggers that tell you if there's overcapacity or there's too much bandwidth, is ideal for us. We just want to provide solutions, and we don't want to have too many people. And listening to Andre, and also before I came here, I spoke with, is it Ted Crevice from Sherwin-Williams, about the very thing we're going through. And they were just rolling their eyes and saying, it's exactly what we went through. And what I see here is, we've always talked about IT. IT is information technology. It's about, the transfer and dissemination of information. But there seems to be two ITs. There's an IT that's corporate. It's the one for the financial systems. And then there's the IT, and I think for Sherwin-Williams, it's for supply chain management. And for Andre, it's the IT of the plant control, because we can't segregate it anymore. We use IT. We use the IT technologies to run our plants. And I think that's where, I think to my mind, I'm looking for the solution and to work with the CIO and the IT group. And I think this is probably where it is that if we can make that delineation, then the SOX compliance, all the controls that are necessary for financial reporting stay there. We create the interfaces to the systems and we hand it over the fence.
Tom, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think historically the IT departments are a little bit more conservative, and they're dealing with financial data and employee records and all that kind of thing, and they need to be. But the plant floor has to be a little bit more agile. You have new products that you're coming out with and things like that. So IT world is just slowed down. We need this change tomorrow, and you might get it 30 days later. I'm not sure if that. Where the plant floor, you need it. You don't stop production. We need to solve this now. So it is kind of a contrast there. And I think if you can provide tools and use standards that make that transition easier, that now, you can accomplish both. And there's a behavior change on both sides there.
Okay, thanks.
just to make a point, I think that's important, and we commented on tools. Tom talked about tools. When we addressed the device-wise product development and the use cases, we certainly addressed the fact that there were two types of users. There were going to be the people from the ops side that engage and use the tool set, and there's going to be the people from the IT side. So doing things with role-based security and access, and making sure that maybe an IT guy really won't go in and set a global variable that might swing a robot arm or something silly that we all are worried about. We want to make sure that this happens, and likewise, we want to make sure that maybe the plant floor operations guy isn't going to get up and see the HR records. So making sure that there's the right sort of demarcation points built into the product and the right tools that allow it to be used in a very easy way. So we try to make things that are sometimes very, very hard really, really simple. So built for the operator to be able to use without necessarily IT skills, but kind of protecting each other from themselves sometimes, making sure that they don't get access to things that maybe isn't appropriate.
Okay. Well, if there are no further questions from the audience, I have one question that I'd like to pose to the panel, and we can wrap up with that. Any other questions from the front? Here we are.
Dusiak from ExxonMobil. Jason, that was a fantastic talk. I really salute you in terms of the pace and the rate at which you can innovate. And so I understand that a lot of your functional requirements related to providing user interfaces, et cetera, which is perhaps one of the great strengths of Java. But when I read in the literature, and what my colleagues tell me internally, is that Java, we should be concerned for an above average vulnerability to malware, and consequently is something that we should be very skeptical for consideration for use in process control service where there's a significant safety hazard. I wonder if you guys can address that question.
Yeah, so both of us actually at Honda, we use a Java-based system as well. So that custom code is written using Java. I think that security vulnerability exists no matter, I think, whatever IT technology you use. Today you talk about vulnerabilities from a Java perspective. Tomorrow will be vulnerabilities looking at maybe a .NET perspective. And I think that as we evolve and we start seeing more IT technology in our factory floor environments, that's just going to exist. You're seeing the same thing exist today with your home personal computer. Saying that, you have to take the appropriate measures, meaning that you have to make sure that you put up I like to say a security fence, right? You got to use perimeter security. You got to make sure that you use role-based security to make sure that, as Jason talked about, segregations of duties and other stuff, but also making sure that one side can't willfully or knowingly harm the other side of the environment. And you also have to make sure that you protect yourself from both internal and external threats. And majority of those threats are going to come from inside the company because somebody had some cool document that they looked at their house that had a virus on it, maybe had that vulnerability, brought inside the company, showed it to the coworker, and now that your manufacturing execution system is not working. So I think we have to look at that, but those inherent problems from a security perspective, I believe exists in any type of, from my perspective, any type of computer system that we'll look at today. And that's just kind of where I'm sitting at. Hopefully I answered your question completely. If not, you can redirect there.
I can probably add to that a little bit too. If we're keeping score between updates to Microsoft for vulnerabilities and Java, I think Java will win. So it just happens to be the most recent thing that's out there. It's a continued threat that all technologies have to be aware of. Also, the Java vulnerability was around the applet aspect of it, so when you're running it from web. So what Andre is using, what our product uses, doesn't use that. So you have some protection there. That's no guarantees it's foolproof. Like I said, it's an ongoing thing with all technologies, and will continue to be in the future.
Okay. Bryan, any comments on this? Or,
Security of Java?
yeah.
Well, I would concur. I would simply concur that there are vulnerabilities in all systems. I'm not a Java expert, but and in fact, I think for me, a lot of it they're tools, and you have to pick the right tools, obviously. But no, I would say
Okay.
that.
All right, so I want to wrap up, so I'm just going to finish with one question. I appreciate a really quick answer from everybody, and we'll just go right down the row, and since you've got the mic, you can go first. We heard a theme come out a couple of times today about not so much reducing your workforce, but extending the capabilities of your workforce with some of these new information-driven concepts and technologies. Is that going to go the other way? Is this sort of extending the workforce a good way to think about it, or should we be thinking about reduction as well?
Well, I think it's about effectiveness. I think there are a couple of things. The last session, Harry Forbes had said that one of the economists has said that it was the end of efficiencies, and I think he's probably speaking more toward process manufacturing as opposed to discrete. I think you walk into a lot of plants and you see lots of efficiencies to be had. Just walking the floor, and you ask yourself, is it about the tools? Is it about the people? And how do you leverage those tools to actually get those efficiencies? And I don't know if it's always about the tools, because I think many people who know plants and walk plants see lots of inefficiency. So I think it's really about what you do with those tools, and I think you had said it was about effectively utilizing those.
Okay, fair enough. Fred?
So I believe that information is power. You talked about across the value chain. So right time, not necessarily real time, but right time when you need that information is going to be consumed by a lot of participants who are going to add value and participate in creating efficiencies and building better processes. They may not be your internal people. They may be vendors. They may be suppliers. They may be partners. In crossing organizational boundaries, going across the public infrastructure and networks, and sharing information to ultimately garner the right results is going to be something that we're going to see a radical improvement in over time, because the ability to share data is becoming more and more common.
Excellent thought. Andre?
I would say yes, it is extending the capabilities of the workforce, and it has to do around retooling. You have to think of it as from a toolbox perspective. As something I have to fix, I have to make sure that I right-size my tools, my people, my capabilities, just so I have the right wrench to fit the tool, right, to fit the part, so that I can make sure I can tighten it or fix it correctly. So when you look at it that way, it's just an evolution that we have to go through. So just like your tools in your toolbox have changed over the years, got these new fancy devices that do other stuff, I think we do the same thing. And the information that we're given, the decision-making capabilities we have, it just adds to that toolbox.
Okay, so we have a better toolbox. Tom?
Yeah, I think if you have too many tools, one, you have your training that you have to provide, or just people getting familiar with it and learning it and going through that process, and then if you don't touch it for 6 months, going back and being able to support it. So if you can kind of stick with technologies that you use commonly and tools that you use commonly, become very proficient in those, and you can have multiple people and they can help and mentor each other. So I think that helps the efficiency on being able to turn out new things as well as support and maintain the existing.
Okay, and finally, Jason?
6 months after we went live in Tacoma at the downstream, the JP manager or downstream manager was promoted and he was made the plant manager. And at the time, the regional director said, you know what the ROI of this project is? He said, it eliminates middle management. So they never replaced that position. They combined it with another department, because effectively the JP manager was a guy who had to continually monitor and report on the operations and take it up to senior management, create the reports, take it at the end of the month or the week. So that's definitely what we've been able to achieve with this. And it's a hard sell because I'm now going to the other JPs and saying, hey, we can implement this for you. What do you think? And they go like, yeah, no. I mean, we are rolling it out, but when they start to realize the writing's on the wall. But it's okay because they're saying, look, you can do a fantastic job. They'll find a better position, a job that's not there to sit around collating data and getting it together. And we find that everywhere is that with the major ERP systems, and for every company I've worked on, I've gone through 3 of the major ERP systems, we always end up in a place where we feed the beast. We spend so much time manipulating the data, trying to get it into the system. We have no time for analysis. And what you get out of the end is a 90-page PDF. You can't do any analysis for it. So what we're able to do now is with the workforce that we have, the data's in there. It's like, forget about trying to create reports for your manager, use the data. And in fact, another point here is that they keep asking me, saying, can you create us a report? Again, like I can. I'm not going to. I mean, what is a report? A report is a static view of the data, the health of my plant and my operation. You don't need a static one because it's there to do analysis to say, well, what is it? And then you say, well, what's causing this dial to be off so much? Well, then you go, let's go run another report. We create dashboards. You go in, you want to look over a time period, you can drill down, drill down, drill down. To my mind, the report is done. The idea of printing something out so you can carry it and stick it on your boss's desk is gone. He doesn't need to be making that decision. That's what you do through the analysis tool.
So thank you. So as you can see, we've got a lot of passion about the technology and about the benefits of it. Please join me in thanking our panel and our speakers.